A waitress helped an old woman every morning, until 4 bodyguards and her lawyers showed up every morning at Rosie's diner in small-town Ohio. Sarah poured coffee and served breakfast with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She was 23, working double shifts to pay off her mother's medical bills, and kindness was all she had left to give. But she never imagined that one simple act of compassion would change her life forever. This is the true story of how helping a lonely stranger transformed everything Sarah thought she knew about the world. What happened when those bodyguards walked through that diner door will restore your faith in humanity. Before we begin, if you love stories that remind us why kindness matters, please hit that subscribe button and join our Heartfelt Moments family. Give this video a like if you believe in the power of compassion, and drop a comment below telling us about a time when a stranger's kindness changed your day. Your stories inspire us to keep sharing these beautiful moments. Now, let's get back to Sarah's incredible journey. Sarah had been working at Rosie's diner for 2 years when she first noticed the old woman. It was a Tuesday morning in March, and rain was drumming against the windows as an elderly lady shuffled through the door, leaning heavily on a worn wooden cane. Her coat was thin, her shoes were scuffed, and she carried herself with the kind of quiet dignity that comes from a lifetime of facing hardship with grace. The woman sat down at the corner booth, the same one every morning after that, and ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, oatmeal and black coffee. Sarah noticed how her hands trembled slightly as she counted out exact change from a small coin purse, making sure she had enough for a modest tip. While other servers rushed past, Sarah always took a moment to chat. She learned the woman's name was Alina, that she lived alone in a small apartment 3 blocks away, and that she'd been a widow for 15 years. Alina never complained, but Sarah could see the loneliness in her eyes, the way she lingered over her coffee just to have someone to talk to. Sarah started doing small things. She'd refill Alina's coffee without charging for the extra cups. She'd slip an extra piece of toast onto her plate. On particularly cold mornings, she'd make sure Alina's oatmeal had extra brown sugar and cinnamon, the way her own grandmother had liked it. These gestures cost Sarah nothing but a few seconds of attention, yet they meant everything to Alina. As weeks turned into months, their morning conversations became the highlight of both their days. Alina would tell stories about her late husband, a factory worker who'd loved to dance. Sarah would share her worries about her mother's mounting hospital bills and her dreams of someday going back to school to become a nurse. In that corner booth, they weren't just waitress and customer. They were 2 souls finding comfort in each other's company. One morning in June, Alina didn't show up. Sarah felt a knot of worry tighten in her chest. The next day, still no Alina. By the 3rd day, Sarah was so concerned that she asked her manager if she could take a quick break to walk to Alina's apartment building. She just needed to know the old woman was okay. When Sarah knocked on apartment 3B, a neighbor opened her own door and explained that Alina had fallen ill and been taken to the hospital. Sarah's heart sank. That evening, after her shift ended, she bought a small bouquet of carnations from the grocery store and took the bus to County General Hospital. She found Alina in a shared room, looking smaller and frailer than ever against the white hospital sheets. But when Alina saw Sarah walk through that door with flowers in hand, her whole face lit up with a joy that made Sarah's eyes sting with tears. They talked for an hour, and when Sarah finally had to leave, Alina squeezed her hand and whispered, "You've been like a granddaughter to me. Thank you for seeing me when the world stopped looking." 3 weeks later, Alina was back at the diner, a little weaker but smiling as always. Life returned to normal, or so Sarah thought. Then came the morning that changed everything. Sarah was wiping down tables when the diner door swung open and 4 men in dark suits walked in, their presence commanding immediate attention. Behind them came 2 women carrying leather briefcases. Every conversation in the diner stopped. These people didn't belong in Rosie's diner. One of the suited men approached the counter and asked, "Are you Sarah Mitchell?" Sarah's hands went cold. Her first thought was debt collectors, Her second was that something had happened to her mother. "Yes," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need you to come with us, please." "It's about Alina Hartfield." Sarah's heart dropped. The bodyguards escorted her outside where a sleek black car was waiting. During the ride to a downtown office building she'd never noticed before, one of the lawyers finally explained. Alina Hartfield wasn't just a lonely widow. She was Alina Hartfield, heir to the Hartfield manufacturing fortune, one of the wealthiest women in the state. After her husband died, she'd given away most of her possessions and moved to a modest apartment, wanting to live simply and find out who would care for her without knowing about her money. For 8 months, Sarah had been kind to one of Ohio's richest women without having any idea. And Alina had been watching, documenting every act of compassion, every extra cup of coffee, every moment Sarah had treated her with dignity and warmth. In the lawyer's office, Sarah learned that Alina had rewritten her will. She was leaving Sarah enough money to pay off every medical bill, complete her nursing degree, and start a foundation in her mother's name to help other families facing medical debt. It was more money than Sarah had ever imagined having in her lifetime, but the real gift was the letter Alina had written. Through tears, Sarah read words that would stay with her forever. "You saw me. Not my money, not my status, just me. You gave me friendship when I had nothing to offer but conversation and company. You reminded me that kindness still exists in this world, and for that, I am eternally grateful." Sarah went back to Rosie's diner that afternoon in a daze. Alina was sitting in her usual corner booth, smiling that gentle smile. Sarah slid into the seat across from her, and for a long moment, neither spoke. Then Alina reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. "Keep being exactly who you are," she said softly. "The world needs more people like you." Sarah did become a nurse. She did start that foundation. But more importantly, she never forgot the lesson Alina taught her, that every person we meet carries a story, a struggle, and a heart that yearns to be seen. Kindness costs nothing, but its value is immeasurable. The next time you see someone who seems invisible to the world, take a moment, pour that extra cup of coffee, share that smile. Listen to that story. You never know whose life you might change, but more importantly, you never know how much your own life might be transformed by the simple act of caring. Because in the end, we're all just looking for someone to see us, to acknowledge our humanity, and to remind us that we matter. And sometimes, being that person for someone else is the greatest gift we'll ever give or receive.